um, as we move forward. So, all right, everybody, thanks again for joining me. I really do appreciate it for this month's best practice webinar. This month and future months, I've invited our general managers to join as well to these calls, just so they could be a little more informed of what's going on out on the golf course and what type of problems our superintendents are running into across the country. And it looks like we've got quite a few of them on the call already today, which is great. So thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. I do know with these best practice calls, I'd love for each and every one of you to be on every single one, but I get it. I understand what you guys are going through out there on a day-to-day basis and what the weather's like right now. So I do appreciate you taking this hour to spend with me. And today, we're lucky enough to have Rainbird that's going to be on today and give a presentation on some great practices you can do to your golf course right now and what they have to look forward to in the future. But before we jump into Rainbird and talking to them, I wanted to bring up a couple quick things. My goals for you for these webinars is to get something useful. I want this hour to be useful to you. I don't want this to be a drag. And I think if you pay attention and cooperate, and pay attention and engage, then you'll get something out of this. Build relationships. I want each of you to realize that you guys are not in this alone, and we're going through this together as a group, and everybody's struggling right now with some of this. And this picture here, not to single out Matt Greeley, and Matt, this is before your time. I know you don't have these spots anymore. But everybody's dragging hose. Everybody's putting out little Mr. kits. Everybody's got those little brown spots along the edges. It happens. We get it. And we'll get through it, right? I brought it up, those dog days of summer. We're on a downward trend. I always had somebody tell me once you hit July 4th, all the days seem to get about 3 or 4 minutes shorter every day. So your heat only lasts that much less each and every day. And by the time you get to August, humidity kicks in, but that heat usually subsides a little. Quick update on some future BMP topics. Right, I'm looking to get some equipment manufacturers on here to update us on what the equipment outlook looks like for the next year to 18 months. Some updates from the construction side of the management team on what the future looks like for us. Really trying to get you guys to work on some work-life balance. And I know you're going to laugh when I say that, right? This is the time when you guys are working 60 to 80 hours a week, if not more. But we want to make sure you're getting a good work-life balance in there too. And paying attention to whatever it is away from work that you enjoy to do. Fishing, kids, family, playing golf, drinking beers, whatever that is. We want to make sure you're getting time to do that as well. And vendor updates. And that brings me right into our Rainbird update here. I threw in this picture of Devil's Tower because they just did an irrigation renovation with some Rainbird product a year and a half ago. And I was up there last year, and it doesn't get much better than that. Right, it's a good looking golf course, great system up there. I was lucky enough to spend a few minutes with Chad Davis and John out at the TAO meetings last week to catch up a little bit on some of their product and what they have coming forward, and I thought it'd be great for them to share it with you. So from there, gentlemen, Chad, I don't know if you want to jump in or John is going to take it, but let me know.
Yeah. Are we able to, John, are you able to share your screen yet? Do you know?
No.
Is that something that
Chris gives
Chris might have to give control of?
There you go.
I'm Chad Davis. I'm the National Accounts Manager, JP. John Pollock is on call. A lot of y'all may know him. He's been around the industry forever. We are excited to start this new partnership with Landscapes. I feel like it's been a long time in the making. We're very happy and excited to have something in place to where it provides more consistency and opens communication between the two companies about how we can help. And hopefully you're already getting the good support from wherever you're at if you have Rainbird, but hopefully this helps even more. So I'll let JP take over and talk about some best practices at the course.
Thanks, Chad. Everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up.
Yep, gotcha.
All right, fantastic. I think this little presentation is going to work right into what you're looking for, Chris, I hope. I don't want to come on here and just talk about products because that's can be pretty boring, but I want to talk about some irrigation theories. I'm a previous superintendent of about 30 years, and I was an irrigation superintendent. You could ask me about chemicals. I probably could not help you out there, but I've definitely been around the corner a few times on irrigation. My career's been spent in the Southwest, so irrigation to me is number one. I spent a lot of time working on my system, from the computer side to spacing to nozzling to everything out in the field at every facility that I've had. When I was a consultant, I would go in and I would do these practices in the first couple of weeks that I was on site, and then I'd sit back and watch my golf course get better. So I just want to share some of my experiences with you on the basic audits, different control packages that we can help out with, and then we'll get into some new product. So if you have any questions, this works really well if there's some engagement involved and people are asking questions, and we can develop a irrigation knowledge together. So if anyone wants to let me know what their definition of an irrigation audit consists of. Is there anybody out there that's willing to talk about that? If not, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, what was the question once again?
Yeah, what is your definition of an irrigation audit?
Ooh. That's a very good question.
Yeah.
I would imagine uniformity.
Okay.
Uniformity, certainly.
Spacing. Uniformity goes with the consistency and the predictability of setting water up. Maybe even looking at the pipes and your fittings, auditing, I mean, we can look at a head and tell nozzles are worn out, but what about the internal of the pipes if you're looking to redo your pipes, the pipe wall thickness and all that?
Absolutely. Usually when I do this presentation, I have these PowerPoints come up individually, but what you're saying is 100% correct. It's basically everything from your nozzle to your water source, everything in between. It's your computer, it's your software, it's your rotors, it's your pressure source, which is your pump station or gravity fed, however you have that out there, your satellites, your valves, piping, and wiring. We can talk about everything when it comes to irrigation. My tagline on my Twitter feed is manage your irrigation system like you do your bunkers. We don't have enough people in the field working on an irrigation system. It's $3+ million to replace it. That hits the bottom line. The members don't see it because it's all underground. They might see the results, but they don't see what's underground. So we have to make this thing last as long as possible. And coming from a salesman, we don't want you to do these practices so we can sell you more new stuff, but that's just not the way we feel at Rainbird. We want to help our customers. So I make out a list of all the items that I have on the golf course. And then I just start a plan. Am I going to start with the computer, the software, the rotors? What am I going to start with? Right. So the biggest thing to me is when you go out to your satellites or even your IC system or your 2-wire system decoder, whatever you have, and you go to number 1 green, and it's the first green front left corner. I call that 1G1 on hole number 1. I'm going to turn on 1G1 from my computer, my iPad, my Freedom Radio or satellite, or not satellite, but from the computer. I want that head to come on. So we need to audit every satellite to make sure it matches with the database that you have set up in your computer. So when I turn on 1G1, the head that I believe is 1G1 comes on. It's no different than coming home to your house, hitting your garage door. Does your garage door open up, or is it your neighbor's garage door open up? We want my garage door to open up. Does that make sense? And I've been
Absolutely.
on, I'm on 200 facilities a year. I do these audits with the guys. I show them what we do, and there's not a satellite I've been to that something is not wrong with that satellite and the communication back to the database on the computer. Now it could be that there's two heads running off of, and we only have one in the computer. There could be a statter issue where we've all seen it, where the sprinkler is just whipping around, or it's going real slow. So when I talk about auditing the system, that is where I start. I want to hit my remote control and I want my head to come on so the databases match up. Okay. That's where I start because that's the biggest thing. We could talk about DU, we could talk about nozzling, we could talk about a lot of different things, but if we turn on the computer and a rough head comes up and we think it's a green head or a T head or a whatever, it's not going to work as good as it possibly could. So that's where I start. Then I take a look at all the rotors. Is the stator set up right? Are they functioning? Are they rotating? Are they bubbling? All the things that could possibly happen. And I take it all the way down to the source of the pump station. Is it working properly? Is the pressure matching up? Is the gallons per minute coming out of a pump station matching what my database says? Then we can get into valves. Okay, I ask this question a lot. How many times a year do you guys exercise your valves? That where you go out, you turn on that lateral line, you turn the valve on and off to make sure that that valve is working. And
Only
I
when
get
there's a
this,
problem, John, right? Only when there's a
yeah,
problem.
no. And then I used to, exactly. And, you know, somebody asked me, they asked me a question, well, how often should we do it? And I said, well, let's start out with one. Okay, let's start out with finding all the valves on your golf course. Okay, find them all, figure out what rotors are on that valve, make sure they work, and then go to number two. Do it one time. Document where those valves are because we've all been there. You know, you got a geyser going out there and you're scrambling to find out how to shut it off.
Number two fairway.
Right? Yeah, no, it's
Absolutely.
yeah, it happens all the time. But I'm saying on this thing, water is the issue. The cost of water is an issue, and we don't have enough people operating and working on our irrigation system. Many places that I go to, they have a shovel, something to turn a valve off with, and that's about it to work on an irrigation system. You got a $3.2 million irrigation system out there, and sometimes very untrained professionals operating your irrigation system. So if we can improve on those types of things, we can find our valves, we understand our piping, figuring out the wire. There's a lot to an irrigation system. Is basically a irrigator is like the mechanic for your irrigation system, and you want a trained mechanic. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the next thing I see a lot, what is your facilities year-to-date rainfall? Just tell me out there, Bart. You're off mute, so I'll ask you, Bart. What's the annual rainfall that you have at your facility?
No, that varies from year to year. Pardon me. 46.
How many minutes is that?
Pardon me.
How many minutes is that?
I don't know. You tell me.
I don't know either. But why do we water in minutes? I go across the country. 1,600 of my golf courses, I have 1,550 watering in minutes. I put 10 minutes on last night. I put 16 minutes on last night. I spun it the head twice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We're professionals, right? We talk in inches. How many inches did I put on last night?
Depends on ET.
Yeah.
Correct.
Very good.
Right.
Very good. Yeah.
So my goal is to talk about precip rates. Somebody mentioned ET. ET is another tool that tells us what was lost at night. Okay. But that doesn't mean we have to water 100% because we've always adjusted the ET version in our weather station, our software program. My thing as a superintendent, I wanted to water my facility as much as I could possibly water without having to come into the next day and tell the pro we need to put carts on cart paths because it's too wet out there. Okay. So that's what I'm trying to get to. Maybe not watering every night, but if we get our satellites correct, the database correct in our computer and we start looking at watering in a precip rate, because what happens is when we water minutes, you're making adjustments all the time. Okay. I sat in front of the computer and made adjustments all the time. My part circles were at a 10-minute default. My full circles were at a 10-minute default. And I run percentages and station adjusts all over the place. When I walk into a facility and look at somebody's computer, I can see right off the bat that he's spending way too much time trying to get it right. Okay? Because a part circle should be half the time that a full circle is. It's just common sense, right? So when we set up our database into a precip rate, we are going to calculate the nozzle radius and arc of each sprinkler, put that into the computer, and now we can say, I want to water tonight 0.33 inches. Because I know if I get a half inch, I have to put carts on the cart path. So now I'm going to simulate an all-night soaker putting out a third of an inch of water in an 8-hour period at night. I'm going to come in and there's going to be a better distribution of water without making daily and hourly adjustments to each sprinkler. Does that sound intriguing?
Absolutely. Yes.
So this is how we do it. Just to let you know, our rotor setup, Rainbird's new 752 rotor has 146 different combinations. Each combination has a different precip rate. So unless you have the same sprinkler, same setup on your golf course, this is a system that you should at least consider taking a look at. Now, in the heart of the summer, it's going to be very difficult to get this accomplished. But you can do your greens. Very simply do your greens. But it's a wintertime project, or you have somebody come in and bring it. But we're going to go through and we are going to so there's 146 different combinations. All right, so the new 702, 752 rotor, we believe that we have it's very reliable, the distribution uniformity, and what a lot of guys don't know is that it has a self-adjusting stator. So no other sprinkler out there has a self-adjusting stator. Now, this is very important for moving forward, because when you do an audit, you're going to see a sprinkler that's going to be going way too fast or way too slow because the stator and the nozzle and the pressure are not combined correctly. And that's part of doing your satellite to field data report, and then putting that information back into your database. Anyone know what a dwell time is? Has anyone heard the term dwell time?
No.
So we all know what it is. We just might not know what it's called. It's when a part circle hits the right edge or left edge and stops. The amount of time it takes you to have that sprinkler stop and then come back the other way. How many seconds that is, that's a dwell time. So part circle goes out to the right, it stops, and then it comes back the other direction. The amount of time there is dwell time. So with our self-adjusting stator, we have a faster, more quicker dwell time, which makes a lot of difference when you're watering part circles on greens and part circles on aprons. You have double the dwell times, correct? And we always get wet or dry if that dwell time is, if that thing is set up to not get on the green and there's a gap in there when you're watering with part circles. All right, so Chris, you might be interested in this. I know I sent you the spreadsheet, but when we're talking distribution uniformity, it's a dollar figure there. The better your distribution uniformity is, the less you have to do a conversion with scheduling coefficient. Okay, so if your DU is in the 60s, you might have to water 15 minutes for every 10 minutes needed. And we're using minutes, but you can take it by 20% or 30%. You have to water more. And you guys do it already by making adjustments in the field. But if you have a bad or a low DU, it just costs your club more money. So the best sprinklers out there can water basically 1.1 is the best DU or best scheduling coefficient you can get. So if you have to water 10 minutes, basically you need to water 10% more to get the uniformity that the factory and the audit's going to ask for. But then if you have something lower in the DU, you're going to have to water 20% more, 30% more, 40% more. And that's just a cost factor and a playability factor. Does that make sense? You guys already do it in the field. You already make your adjustments in the field. But when you get down to auditing your system and you can get your distribution uniformity down to 1.1, which is obtainable, you're going to start saving your club a lot of money. And then if there's a power source involved with running your system, which there typically is, you're going to save power and water and improve the conditions of your golf course.
So John, you're saying that, right? The more efficient you are, the less time you have to run, the less water you're using, the less power you're using, the smaller your water window is. So all those things we're looking for.
Yep, we're all looking for that. I went to a club as a consultant years ago, and they were running about a 1.4 DU. It was just under 65. We switched out all the nozzles. We leveled all the heads. We got it to about a 1.2 distribution uniformity. We saved 10%, which was $1.4 million the first year. And our golf course got better. Right? We were spending $1.4 million, we were spending $1.4 million water and power. We got it down to $140,000 savings, 10%, just by doing those two things. And obviously running through the satellites and making sure the database was correct. So spent 1.4, did these processes that didn't cost us $100,000 and saved $140,000. It was a good bonus year for me. And the golf course got better. We didn't have hot spots, wet spots, because we typically have to decide what we're going to do. Are we going to water to the hot spot? Are we going to water to the areas that are perfect? Or are we going to water to the wet spots? And once you start down that road, it's just very frustrating to get it consistent because guys are watering in minutes and they're putting 10 minutes on a full circle and 10 minutes on a part circle, and it's getting double the water. So we start putting it together in a precip rate. We start watering a 1/4 of an inch at a time. Now your whole golf course has a 1/4 of an inch of water in an 8-hour period at night. That seems pretty good, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any questions so far? So this is just a basic thing of looking at it. Rotor's a 360-degree arc. I put it together that, at 50 PSI, it covers 1,256 square feet. You run it 12 minutes, it's 80 gallons applied. Gallons applied per square foot is 0.063. You change that nozzle to a 70, and now you're watering 0.02 inches applied per square foot. And then you put it at 100 PSI, you're at 0.025, okay? Different nozzles, different applications. And we all know we don't have the same setup on every rotor on our golf course. That's where the audit, satellite to rotor to database back to your computer, is essential. You have to get it done if you want to. I suggest getting it done. I shouldn't say you have to, but if you want to make your job a little easier or a lot easier and your golf course better, this is one way of doing it. Now we're going to use the same rotor, the same nozzle, and we're going to do a 90-degree arc, 180-degree arc, or a 360-degree arc. You can see gallons per square foot, 0.02, 0.41, or 0.41 and 0.082. So when you don't have the arcs correct in your database, you're either making adjustments all the time or you're running a very wet and dry golf course. So if you get it correct, let the computer, it's smarter than we'll ever be when it comes to placing water on the golf course, set up the computer right and go from there. So the secret, in my opinion, and it worked for me for a lot of years because I was a minutes guy for about the first 10 years of my career. I was a minutes guy, spent a lot of time adjusting, like way too much time. Once I put in the precip rates and I started watering 0.33 inches per night, because that's what my golf course could take, and my life got a lot easier. So if you want to improve playing conditions, save money, save water, and save time, spend the time necessary to make it correct on your computer's database. I have some sheets in here for you guys, Chris. You know, you go out there and you go to hole number 1, what this rotor is called, satellite, and you fill out this information. You take this information, and we have 24 stations. If you have a Rainbird system, we have blocks of 24. So 24, 48, or 72. So that's where we've made the sheets at 24. This right here is an auto sheet for satellites. There is 8 data points needed. And if you notice, I've already filled out one of them for you. I've already given you station numbers. So there's only 7 that you have to come up with. Basically, you go to your satellite, you turn on first station and write down what it is. Go to the second one, third one, fourth one, and then you go back to your computer and you install that into your database. And you could do one satellite at a time and make it work that way. I have guys that go out there and do their greens, because think about our greens. We don't have perfectly 180 sprinklers on our greens. We got a 180, we got a 90, we got a 135. We might have a 50-degree arc. So the arc is very, very important. Best management practices. Is there any questions on that? I know I go through this pretty quick. Chris has this PowerPoint. I'm available. My number is going to be on here. You can give me a call. But I think, Chris, this is kind of right. Exactly what you were looking for was give us some information on how we can do best management practices.
Right. Excuse me. Sorry, John. Yeah, correct. This is what I was looking for, and to know that they can reach out to you, reach out to me if you need a copy of this. But great practice to do in that spring startup or in the fall when you're getting ready to kind of blow out. Maybe you can get a few satellites stocked out. And it's a long process. We know that you're not going to get this done next week, but it's going to help your system going into 2024 without a doubt.
Absolutely. When I've done it as a consultant, it took me 10 days. I had 2 guys with me, and I spent a lot of time programming. So it's not a short period of time. That's, I would say you're looking at probably 160 to 200 man hours to get this process done. The other thing you can do, you can hire a consultant, and they'll probably charge you $12 a station. So if you have 2,000 heads, if you got a spare $35,000 lying around, they can probably help you out too. So it's pretty crazy that they charge that much, but that's what they do. But one satellite at a time, or you go around and get all your greens done. If you get your precip rates done on your greens, you will see a big difference in water distribution on your greens. At least I have, and many other people as well. Best management practices: backing up your software to the cloud, multiple flash drives. You guys probably already have heard this 100 times. Verify your flow zones. Heads, they need to be level. Replace rotors at greens first. Can test, check and change nozzles. Everyone thinks it's a big ordeal to run a distribution can test. I used to take 20 cans. I'd run them through 2 sprinklers. I'd put 20 in between. I'd run it. My assistant, because I used to sleep in the morning, he'd go out and collect the data. He'd put it in the spreadsheet. We can see what should be a straight line going across, or a very short straight line. So I take 2 sprinklers, 20 cans, run it at night, because the pressure is different at night than during the day. Gather the information, put it in a spreadsheet, and you can see where you might have a spike in water distribution. That would be the first thing I would start with, because that'll show you real quick what a straight line irrigation is. And it should be straight line everywhere across. And you can do a very easy nozzle check at that point and find out where your spike is. And you might need to replace nozzles. What happens when a nozzle wears out? It gets bigger, correct? So more water goes out in a shorter space. Just like a garden hose. You put your garden hose and you put your thumb on it, it squirts out pretty far. But if you take your thumb off, it doesn't go as far. Same water, but it's being distributed in a shorter area. So a single row distribution test can be done every night if you wanted to, or it can be done very easily. But you can get a lot of data from that information.
And John, I think you're on this slide. The number one thing, if you can't remember the last time you backed up your software, do it today.
Yeah.
You know, it's very important.
Yeah. So I used to have a list when I was a superintendent, pay the rent. It was the first of the month and I'd have, I don't know, 8 or 10 things that I had to do to pay the rent. And backup software, get your water, you know, read your water meters, read your whatever you have to do the first of every month. And it was always backup software. The other thing that should be done if you're running a Rainbird system, because we're different than the other two manufacturers where there is a download, we run 24/7. I highly recommend rebooting your computer once a week because it's running 24/7. Shut her down, let it rest, turn it back on. It takes 5 minutes. And I think you're going to get a big, you might get some help out of that, as well as once a month calling GSP and having them look at your computer. You pay for the service, get used to using them. There might be an update that you don't have. They might be able to find something that your computer can work a little quicker. And it's just a good check. The irrigation system in the Southwest, it's the most important thing we have. Some places otherwhere where they get a lot of inches of rain. I think Bart said he gets 46 inches. I got 86 inches when I was in Kauai, but I also went 2 months without any rain. So your irrigation system is pretty much the kingpin of your facility. If you're running a Rainbird system or any system, perform that dry run every day and verify it next day with your daily logs. It can really solve some issues first thing in the morning for you. My other suggestion would be to reduce water flow in the winter months. I know a lot of guys in the Southwest have 3,000 gallon pump stations and they run 3,000 gallons per minute in the wintertime, and their irrigation thing is like 45 minutes and it's done. Slow that thing down so you're only running one pump. And if you guys ever come across AutoCAD Lite for your facilities, electronic as-built, I've used that in the past and it's worked very good.
Very good.
All right, new software has been released. How many inches? Okay, so we've already talked about this. Okay, so the new software, let's talk about some new product. The illustration I'm going to show you now is in Cirrus Pro. That is our new release software. Okay, it is a software that you have many more options to run. We've talked about this, and if you can see this, this is 10 minutes across your greens. Okay, 10 minutes across your greens. And if you look at the top right corner, it's going to say time. That's 10 minutes across your green. Okay. I don't know. There's a lot of superintendents I talk to that's what they do. And that's fine by me. We all run things differently. This is what the difference in calculation. This is 10 minutes. Now that's an application rate with those same 10 minutes. Okay. So if you look at that, we vary from 0.0 or 0.17 to a high of 0.48. When you look at the new software, we've color coded the boxes to make it stand out that the dark blue is more water, the lighter colors is less water. But this is 10 minutes. I ran 10 minutes across my greens last night, but that's what I put out. And I've been trying to educate my fellow superintendents on this. And it's been very difficult until now. Now it's a visual. Now you can see it, right? You can see where, and you guys have probably already went in there and made all the adjustments, right? But if you haven't, this is what's going on. 10 minutes of water, application rate. Next slide. This is time. This is a fairway application. Okay. These are adjustments. And there you go. That's putting out 1/4 of an inch. When you run a dry run and you have this chart, you're going to have the ability to go up there and look at time, look at application, and we can get to rotation as well. Okay. So there you go. Numbers all the way across the board. What do we got? We have 1/4 inch of water. That's the visual that I've been asking for. And I stood up and applauded the engineers when they came out with this, because if this is a visual that everyone can relate to. There you go. Now I'm gonna flush my greens. Okay. I want to put 2 inches of water out there to flush my greens. Here's the minutes. There's 2 minutes of water across the board. Okay. There's the minutes. There's the application. That is a good visual. Any questions?
You know, John, that visual you showed
Good stuff.
earlier of 10 minutes on every green, right? It brings me back to my superintendent days of, man, all the heads are running. Man, I'm always getting that hot spot on the back left of 4 green. It's just always there. And I can never get rid of it. I'm hand watering it every single morning. But all my heads are running for whatever it was, 15 minutes a night, every other night. Well, that shows right there that I probably wasn't getting the proper uniformity that I needed, and I was watering to time and not to inches.
Yep. 100%, Chris. And I have had more success. Been trying to do this for 20 years. I've had more success when I've shown this slide alone than I have in 20 previous years, because people can see it. That's what we want, boys and ladies. Okay. We want to put out what happens when it rains and you get a 1/3 of an inch or a 1/2 an inch of rain. It's an all-day soaker. Your golf course looks great. Okay. That's what we're trying to produce with our irrigation system. And we can do it. We can put this out over 8 hours. Right. And a consistent 1/4 of an inch. Questions?
So this is a GM talking. I have no idea what I'm talking. I love listening to this, but so what happens then if you say I want to put a 1/4 of an inch down? Does it slow the rotor down so that it slows it down in a certain area and then speeds up when it hits another area? How does it dictate that the amount that goes on there? How does it change?
See, that's a great question. What happens is a rotor is set up to water 30 gallons a minute. The problem that we have is a part circle is to put out 30 gallons a minute. The arc is 180 degrees. It's going to water part circle 180 degrees. What happens on most facilities is they don't make the adjustment on the part circle. So that gets twice as much water than the 360 degree circle, because you're watering different square footages. So what this does for us is when we go in there and we do a satellite to golf course to computer database audit, we are looking at the 2,000 sprinklers you have on the golf course, and we're going to give that sprinkler the right arc. So now when the guys go out there and they water the right arc with a precip rate, it's only going to put out 1/4 of an inch. The sprinkler doesn't slow down. It doesn't do anything. It just automatically calculates how many minutes it needs to run. This is the greens. We're putting out 2 inches of water here. The computer calculates how many minutes it has to run.
Perfect. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yep.
Yep. No. So what we want to do is we want to put out, I use 1/4 of an inch. We want to put 1/4 of an inch of irrigation out at nighttime. The computer is going to tell us how many minutes we're going to run, but it's going to be based on that or that. Okay. It ran that many minutes, but it put out 1/4 of an inch across your golf course. And then you can go in and you can do the environmental adjustments. You can put the shade areas, you can put the full sun, you can put your swampy area, you can put your hotspot area, and you can increase those things and adjust it that way. But at least you're starting at a base level of we're putting out this much. Okay, the differences. Any questions on that? Like I said, this is a passion of mine. I've been an irrigation guy my entire life. I figured it out. It made me a pretty good superintendent because I could dial down my irrigation system or crank it up if I needed to all together instead of just cranking up one area. I could go, we're a little wet today, we're going to crank that down, or we're a little dry, we can crank it up, and it's more uniform. Central computer control. I'm sorry, is there any questions out there? Okay. The next agenda, I'm sorry about the topic there. Agenda topic, central control, computerized control systems. Operating, communicating 24/7. That's what the Rainbird computer does, okay? The big difference between the other two manufacturers and Rainbird is that we are operating 24/7. Okay, we are monitoring your system 24/7. If you have to make an adjustment in the middle of the night, you push the button and the computer makes the adjustment. The reason I chose Rainbird as a superintendent was something they invented or they put into their software in 1978, and we've had it ever since. We just don't talk about it that much because it's an old product. It's an old point of discussion is dynamic flow manager. So when we run our system, we get everything set up where each pipe can only allow so much water going through it. And when there's water available, when you have the whole system like that, and there's water available on number 2, we can put water up on number 2. If there's water available on number 7, we can move it down to number 7. The other people have to do areas. So we're getting the best and most efficient use of our water source and our power from our pump stations because we can run a flow across your entire hydraulic system that's underground. So that's the difference. We don't have a daily download required either. So if that makes sense, if there's any guys that are really into flow zones and making sure they can maximize the use of their water source and the power used for pumping that, the dynamic flow manager at the Rainbird software has been carried over to our new products as well. Any questions on that? Okay. I don't know what the mix is of who has what brands or varieties, but I've had all three, and the dynamic flow manager and not having to download something is pretty nice.
What are you watching? Safety?
What's that?
Nothing. You're good, John. You're good.
All right. So field control packages, satellites, decoders, IC system. Who has decoders out there? Anybody?
There's
Chris,
a couple of systems out there.
yeah.
But yeah, there are. And I know I'm glad you put this in there. Just kind of a quick synopsis for guys that don't have them to learn what they are and more about
Yeah.
it.
We'll go quick through this. Satellite system. Satellite or hubs are required. There's many failure points in a satellite system. Diagnosis mainly in the field. Excessive amount of wires and splices. Limited by power. So on a satellite system, we all know you can typically operate about 10 stations per satellite. And what a satellite system is it's a power source to convert your 110, 120 power, whatever you may have out there, down to 24 volts to start it up. That's really what a satellite is for. Now, it also runs stations because you can go in there and run the stations, but basically what it is, it just takes the power down to 24 volts and lets it go. You can, and it's also difficult to expand on any satellite system. You want to put something around your bunkers. If you want to do it right, you got to run that power wire or the common wire and the station wire all the way back to a satellite, which could be 150 or 300 yards away. Right. So normally we don't do that. We tie into the closest sprinkler. We put a valve on it. The misters around your bunkers operate at the same time that fairway head operates or rough head operates. And all satellite systems require power wire. A decoder system is basically the same thing. It's got more areas of failure. And then what they do here, I don't know if I can show it, but you got your office. You go into a hub, and then the next thing is a switch. Because the decoder system is so fickle that if a decoder goes down on the line, it can take down the entire line. So they put a switch in there so you can separate half the wire path. And if you have an issue out there, you have to go in the field, you have to hit that wire splice to know if it's on the top side or the bottom side of the wire path. And then you take it from there. So I see some head shaking that they must have decoder systems and go, what a pain in the butt this is. Yeah, exactly. Right? If you came to me and you said, I'm going to put a decoder system in, I would do everything in my power not to sell it to you. That's how bad they are, in my opinion. And then we have the IC system. I'm sure there's some IC systems on the course. We saw that golf course that Chris showed earlier, but it's simple but sophisticated, highly technical with the ability to expand your system. You want to add that system around your bunkers. You find the wire, you get some water there, you run it, and you go back to your computer and you add the station. Pretty simple. Fewer components, which means less points of failure. We have 3 points of failure. We can have the computer and the ICI plus or the MIM and the wire, and it goes to the sprinkler and the solenoid. Those are 3 things to deal with. Significantly less maintenance throughout the life of the system. Rainbird's Diagnostics. We can hit a button and we can do an IC diagnostics on your entire golf course in less than 5 minutes. We can read the voltage. We can tell you where the health of the system is. The voltage reading is very important because we like it around 28 to 32. But if you start seeing that voltage going down, you know that there's an issue and you can actually go out there and solve an issue before it stops working. It'll work all the way down to 20. So you're looking right at your computer. You haven't done anything but put cream and sugar in your coffee and push the button. And you can physically analyze your entire irrigation system in 5 minutes, the health of it. So the diagnoses are unbelievable. The best part,
Hey, John,
yeah.
I got one question
Uh-huh.
on can you explain a little bit more of the difference between a decoder and an IC system? Because I mean, isn't an IC system basically a decoder system, but you're putting it all in one package, solenoid and decoder, or is that oversimplified?
It's not oversimplified. That is what's happened, but the difference is in our solenoid, when that solenoid fails, when the ICM fails, it's taking itself offline. Okay. So it's saying, I'm failing, I'm taking it offline, and it doesn't bother its neighbor. Okay. Or the person down the street. It just takes itself offline.
And that diagnostic can be done via the computer as opposed to having to divide the system up into quarters and turning off switches and isolating certain parts of the leg. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct.
And then is it possible to upgrade or to convert a decoder system to an IC system and keep the same communication wire?
Yes, you can. You have to eliminate you have to take the Rainbird rotor and the electric solenoid that's on there. You'll have to remove that and put the ICM solenoid on there and get a maxi wire to each location. I'll show it here. So if you can see that right there, whether this is a decoder system going to IC or a satellite system going to IC, we just need to get our maxi wire that comes out of the office. This wire right here comes out of the office. That needs to go to every single rotor. And the solenoid is an electric solenoid or it's a ICM solenoid.
Okay.
Okay. So you're going to have to eliminate some things in your decoder system, but it can be done, and it can be done one hole at a time, one lateral at a time. But yes, so the difference between a decoder system and our IC system is, like you asked earlier, and like I tried to explain, but it's very important. We can read the voltage at every single sprinkler head. If one fails, it's going to fail in the off position and take itself offline. Okay, that's the big patent that we have that nobody else does. And then it doesn't affect anything else. And when you go ahead and run your diagnostics, it'll show you what's failing and what's not. And in your office, you typically can figure out where the fail point is. It's usually between two sprinklers, right? So you're within 60 feet, sitting in your office, drinking coffee. You've determined that you have a bad sprinkler. You haven't pulled out the A-frame. You haven't pulled out the wire locator. You haven't done a valve thing. You haven't dug anything, and you've already found your problem within 60 feet. We've all probably had to fix power wire. Power wire, you could lose 10 days trying to find where the power wire is damaged. We don't have power wire here. Because what happens is that maxi cable that's hitting every device, every sprinkler, is charging the battery that's located in the ICM or the solenoid. So that's the patent aspect of what the IC system is versus a decoder. We have a decoder system, so we can sell you the basic decoder system. It's used a lot in Europe, but the IC system, and they're converting in Europe to the IC system as well.
Thanks.
Does that help?
Yeah, no, it definitely did.
And if you need some more information, we can get together and we can talk about your situation and maybe come up with the best practices to move forward.
Okay, that'd be great. I appreciate it.
You got it. So there's the IC system here. Great question. Hopefully I answered it, but this is the new and latest thing. We came out with it in 2009. I put my first system in 2011. My first 2 days, I go, geez, I don't have satellites to go to. Day 3, I said, I'd never want to see a satellite again. That's how easy the system is. It is a very simple system and very intelligent. So when you don't have power wire out there, and I could test every sprinkler on the golf course in under 5 minutes, that's what I'm looking for. Here's the difference. If you can see this, to the left is installing an IC system. To the right is installing a satellite system. If you've been in the business long enough, you've seen this the picture on the right. Has anyone in their career dug through a bundle of wires coming out of a satellite? Really?
Never.
Never. It's never happened. And you got what, 70 wires there, and you got to figure out what it goes to and how many splices, right? Well, if you've been in the business long enough, you've done it. So what happens if you go through the IC system? 4 splices. red to red, black to black, and you're going again. And you don't have to go to the satellite. You don't have to turn on any sprinklers. You don't have to do anything. It's done. No power wire. I mean, it's the future, and it's getting better with the software that we have. I do want to bring up one other thing. And this is more on the product side. Let's see if I can find it real quick.
Hey, John, while you're looking for that, are you
Yeah.
seeing a reduction in cost for install because you're running fewer wires, or you're having 0 satellites?
I wish I could say yes. Okay. But the contractors have been keeping the prices pretty level. But I will say off the record, I've had 3 or 4 conversations with them, and it's about a 8% savings. If they'd actually, or I'm sorry, less than that. It's about a $40,000 savings if they would be honest with us. They make up some other excuses, but you don't have power wire, you don't have satellites, you don't have the pad to build it. You have a lot less splices. It is less expensive, but they haven't been really drilled on it too hard by too many people. That answers your question.
Perfect.
I mean, just common sense. It makes you got less wire, less splices, no satellites, no nothing, and no power wire. It's less to install. So. All right. I wanted to show you a picture of our, we have a 752 rotor and a 952 rotor. The 952 is a new product. If you really have any questions with that, we can sell it, but they have self-adjusting stators, which is the big thing. You combine that with the new software where you can do rotations. So I can set up a rotation time on this new software that we have, and we can water in rotation. So if I want to spin the heads twice, I could put rotations and it's going to spin the heads twice. I have a 90-degree sprinkler. It's going to only water 90 degrees twice. Okay. If I have a 360-degree sprinkler, it's going to run 1 rotation, 2 rotations, 3 rotations. But it all comes back to having the database set up properly.
Awesome, John.
Okay.
Do you want to throw out some information on how these guys can reach out and get in contact with you guys if needed?
Absolutely.
If you want to share the presentation with everyone, we don't mind that going around.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll shoot it out to everybody on the call.
An email, and I think on the last 4 slides, John's got my information, JP's information, Kyler, who's based out of Arizona, his information, and Matt Miller, who you know is my boss, is also on there.
Yeah.
If you can't get a hold of somebody at Rainberg, you're not trying.
Yeah, and if anybody on the call has questions and struggle or need contact, just reach out to me. I've got it all. I'll share the presentation with you. And anybody have any questions? All right. Well, from there, I think we're right at 11 o'clock on the hour. I had a couple more small little things to share, but we'll just share those next month. And I really, really appreciate Chad and John jumping on the call and sharing this information. I think it was very useful. And what I got out of the call, right? Take the time to do an audit. If you don't get anything else out of this, do an audit. Know what you're throwing out there. Take the time. Start with your greens, go to tees, go to fairways, however you do it. Assign somebody on your staff if you've got them to do it for you. And by next spring, you'll hopefully have a more efficient system and hopefully save in your department a little bit of money if possible. Great. All right. Well, with that, thanks everybody. I'll let you get back to dragging some hose, kicking on some heads, and stay cool out there. And don't forget your safety skills videos and your inventories coming up here in a couple days. Other than that, I really appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, JP.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Rainberg.
Thanks, Chris.
Awesome, awesome. How was your chicken tenders, Bart? Oh, you're on mute.
I had the club.
All right, that's not bad. You never go wrong
No,
with a club,
it's a
right?
very good item on the menu here. One thing I had failed to mention with JP from Rainbird was, we're still dealing with faulty swing joint assemblies.
Yeah.
Rainbird did send me 50 new ones just to kind of keep me quiet, but that's as far as I've gotten. I mean, that seems to be a continuing problem where you are chasing a defective swing joint assembly out here, and I'm hoping 50 new swing joints will get me through. But
So I
that's kind of
think
the issue I have with Rainbird right now.
I can push a couple buttons, but I do think what I've seen with Rainbird in the last 4 months since I've been talking with them is they really are trying to make right with a lot of people. So I honestly think maybe it starts with you, Bart. You send an email to JP and to Chad and tell them thanks for the presentation, let them know what you've been running into, and let's start it from there. Copy me on it,
Absolutely.
and then we can push some buttons.
Great.
Without a problem.
Great.
But
no, that was very informative. Certainly, I do love the Rainbird product, and
Yep.
I'm blessed to have the IC system. So
well,
it
good,
works out really well.
good, awesome. Well, good. Well, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, Chris.
I laughed when you said you get 46 inches of rain because I know there's plenty of guys on that phone call that get maybe 10. So they're looking at you like, why do you even have an irrigation system?
Well, that's on an average year. This year is unlike any other year. So
Yeah.
I think, we're only at a 10-inch total at this point, but
Yeah.
we'll see what the remainder of the season brings.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
anyway, we'll see.
Awesome. Well, all right. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your
All right.
week. All right.
Do the same.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.